Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an excellent positional game to share with you. This is from round 3 of the 2024 US Chess Championship. On the white end, Robson, playing against Fabiano Caruana. This was my favorite game of Caruana's from this event, as he took down his 4th US title. A model game here for black in this Queen's Gambit declined exchange variation. Some additional security over the d5 square. Let's get some standard moves in here. White cuts out an active bishop deployment. And from here, it's g6. So what do you think's going on with g6? If you'd like to, go ahead, pause the video, see if you can assign a good reason behind this move. Okay, I don't believe there's any one correct answer here. One thing I can say, black is not looking to fianchetto the bishop. Black is not saying, I don't like this diagonal, let me fianchetto. No. G6 is really step one of many as Caruana looks to obtain a strategic objective. What is that? A bad for good bishop exchange. We're going to see how that comes about soon enough. What you could say about G6 is that down the line, okay, we have our flight square now for the king. I think there's credit to be given for that. Also, this move is supporting knight h5, looking to track the dark square bishop. White defends against that, but you'll note the knight still goes there. Normally, you really wouldn't want to play like this as black. You're not getting the bishop, it slithers away. Does the knight really want to be on the edge? Does it prefer being on h5 over f6? The bishop, we can say, doesn't care at all. Doesn't care if it's on f4 or h2. The knight normally would care. What is the big idea? This knight wants to fianchetto for just a moment. And from that square, what is it doing? It's supporting bishop f5, and we're looking to get that light square bishop exchange in. Okay. From here, it's bishop e7. Knight f3 played here. We play within the structure on the king side. One of the ideas in the computer's eyes, move that looks to interfere, we might say, with this light square bishop exchange, wants to play g4. And then put this guy here, looking at the f4 square. This move, for sure, you must weigh very carefully. 3 holes created, super committal move. Okay, computer has its eye on interfering with the light square bishop exchange idea. Both sides here go about with their own plans. Kingside castles, knight g7, minority attack being prepped. We get in bishop f5, in comes b4. Once b5 is in there, one way or another, the black structure will be deficient. Maybe an isolated pawn will surface, maybe a backward pawn. All right, from here, b5 idea is held up for the moment. Knight a4, b5. Big weaknesses on the queen side with this move. This is a hole, backward pawn, now on board. Black has his eye on the c4 square, though. After knight c5, Caruana says, you know what, I could work around this knight that's in my house for a bit. Knight b6. Knight e5. Gotta watch over c6 here. Be careful where we go with the queen, staying off of this diagonal. In comes e4. Now, this is a very thematic pawn break whenever this c-pawn becomes weak. Why do I say this? Well, after this exchange here, there's now another path for white to attack the c6 pawn. Right now it's the bishop. Maybe in some cases the queen can exert pressure here as well. Now, one of the directions the computer wants to go, instead of e4, wants to go with this exchange and then play with a4. And then put this rook here. In a way, white claims, all right, I have the better queen rook. I get to decide when the A file opens up because of this tension. Still a roughly equal game ahead. Now, maybe that was a better direction to go. With this e-pawn break, we'll note the d5 square is now opened up for this guy right here. First of all, before improving this knight, important to kick away this guy before additional pressure is placed on c6. So we have f6 here. You could be sure before f6 is played, Caruana tested queen b3. Am I getting hurt? He's got that covered. In this game, it's knight f3. If there's a queen b3 check, we don't move the king. We'd be getting hit with knight f7. In response to queen b3, a couple knight blocks are available, and then the knight has to move. Okay, the knight simply goes back here to f3. I'll frequently draw attention to tucking a knight behind a pawn. Why is this guy maybe not going here with an eye on this weakened c5 square? This pawn could experience some pressure. Rook d8. At least with knight to f3, this guy is secure. From here, we have a5. Now, before I put on a5 here, I want to draw some attention to the minor pieces. Whose minor pieces stand better overall? Black's. The bishop is Black's bishop is definitely better than White's. Better bishop, nice target in b4. Uncomfortable situation for White. Minor piece putting pressure on a pawn. Major piece has to defend. That's an inconvenience for White. This guy, in a way, stares off into space. If White is not able to make use of this d6 square, this guy at this stage, you could kind of work around it. When we compare the knights, these two, yeah, not so great. These two, well, White's knight is under control by the bishop. This guy, on the other hand, even though it's not central, I consider this knight the best knight in the game. Has excellent jumps. All these forward squares, nice homes, not easily kicked from the light squares. Certainly no pawn is going to kick the knight away. Okay, a5. This is a critical moment in the game. This is really where the game is won here, I would say. How would you respond to a5? Feel free to pause the video. Okay. Robson's reply, very normal looking move, plays a3. Hangs on to b4. Now, what the computer is looking at is a4. Now, I want to touch on the captures that can occur in this position. I want to give you a feel for how play can develop with all of the captures. First, let's consider the pawn captures on these squares. If you take away from the center, it would actually be White who's considered winning after this capture here, double attack on the knight. It likes this position for White here. Maybe in the end claiming of these two weak pawns, the c pawn is weaker. Let's consider the other pawn capture. Taking towards the center, this would allow the capture on b5, and after the c pawn recaptures, there's less control over d5, and this passed pawn could now get rolling. This earlier point I made about the bishop not really doing a whole lot unless something is maybe happening on the d6 square. Well, now it is supporting, with a line like this, it would be supporting this passed pawn. Okay, considering the other two captures, the piece captures, if this knight takes the a pawn, we can take on a5, and yeah, this knight being on this square rather than b6, one less defender around yet again over this d5 square. d5 can be played here as well. Okay, all these lines, aside from this one here, taking away from the center, these are all considered around equal. The last one to look at, the last piece capture, bishop captures b4. This is a nice line. You can take on b5, and then there's this cool move. We have two move combo here, back to back forks. Fork number one, targeting these two, and now fork number two. This is how White collects the pawn back. So this would have to, a lot of effort would really have to go into this moment in the game right here before playing a4, but we're going to see that Caruana is ending up here after the move played in the game, a3 and the capture on b4. What we have here for black is a superior structure and a superior minor piece. This is a fantastic piece right here, the best piece in the game. What is it doing? It's not just coordinating on b4, it has its eye as well on this c3 square. Some forks can surface in some cases. White's response here is knight c5. If white says, you know what, let me exchange dark square bishops, let's get this move in here, not so fast, because we have queen e6. And after the knight moves, there you go, knight c3 with the fork. There's no way out of this fork, by the way, with some queen b3 or queen to e1 preparing to meet. Queen captures with the rook recapturing, no. Both of these moves, we can just take the rook. Keep in mind our queen is defended. Okay, so this idea to exchange dark square bishops, in short, not working. Knight c5 here. Follow up is rook to e8. Nope. Knight c3 in this position is no good. Queen b3 check. And black has no better than to return the knight. So it is rook to e8. From here, we're playing within the structure. Piece play from here. Queen c2, rook a3, rook f to c1. We get a queen exchange from here. And this one is going to liquidate fast. This is a winning position for Caruana. Maintains the tension, maintains control over the opened a file. In comes g4, bishop takes knight. Have to resolve the tension between the rooks before recapturing here. There we go. We're not done with this sequence. In comes rook captures knight here. So one of the moves I was thinking could be played, just move the knight. This is a way forward, in fact, but Caruana's way is much more clean. This is tempting, or something to consider at least, because once the knights are connected, c6 is secure, and now there are two threats. Still winning advantage here, but the very best move played in the game, rook captures knight, pawn captures knight, and let me throw this one to you as a pop quiz. How would you continue here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, excellent technique here. This is, in reviewing these games, it's moments like these that you could really grow as a player. Moments like this when there's two tempting continuations. Which one, in this case, is maybe cleanest or cleaner? Caruana plays here rook to c3. Covers the c6 pawn. Now, what might be tempting is this capture here. This too is considered winning, but notice it's not going to be as clear. These next moves I put on. If this knight captures the pawn, yes, you're securing this point. But notice after these moves here, there is this idea now where the rook can move, the knight is hit, and after the knight moves, this pawn is picked up. Again, this position is considered winning, but not as clear. One pawn advantage. This knight, it's on a good square, but it's not a stable square anymore, and we have a couple active pieces. Much more clean approach here by Caruana. What is his approach? He plays rook c3. Less calculation involved. He's saying, hey, I'm welcome to a minor piece specific ending. Let's play strong knight versus your bad bishop. I'm going to win that. It is a winning advantage. We have this tension in this case first. Pawns are captured. Bishop d6 is played now. If the rooks are exchanged, there's a threat to win this pawn. Knight to e2, and how you're defending against that. If the king steps over, this is also a threat. The king just marching all the way up here. One of these pawns will soon fall. So there's really no hope in this minor piece specific ending. So in this one, after the captures here on g6, we have bishop d6, and now rook to c4. Beautiful move. If this rook is now captured, what are we going to have? A passed pawn, really an extra pawn. In this game, king g2 is played. What happens if the rook is captured? It's an extra pawn. Why am I saying this? This knight cannot be dislodged. It's a perfect blockader of this pawn. This pawn controls this one. These guys on the king's side offset. This one here, in the end, is just an extra pawn. A very big extra pawn, a passer. Look at the wall as well that's formed with the pawn and knight. You can't even approach this pawn. A couple ways forward from here, if we did have the rook exchange, the king can maybe sneak over like this, put pressure on the pawn. If you're around here defending, you're not going to stop this pawn. Maybe even the king sneaking over here could be an idea, picking up this pawn. Many ways forward to convert this one for black. Okay, we do not have this capture on c4. It is king g2. Improving the king now. King is around, securing this point. Now we're ready to win this pawn. Not the b pawn. This one would be poison in the game king e4 is played. If h4 is played and rook takes b, yeah, that would be a big blunder because there's rook takes knight check, and after the recapture, the rook falls. Okay, in this game, it is king to e4. This pawn is secure, but notice now, this pawn can actually be captured. Funny how things change quick like this. Rook takes b is played. Rook takes knight in this case is not quite working out. Yes, it hits with check, but notice after the recapture, we're landing a check back. No time to take the rook. Okay, so Caruana is simply winning a pawn here. Rook gets out of the way, and it's nearly mate now. After king to e6, f5, mating idea. Only way to stop the f5 advance is rook captures pawn. But after king f7, white resigns. We have a fork here. One of these pieces will fall next, completely winning for Caruana. So, what did you think of this one? Anyhow, feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.